So I'm going to once again talk about Ilyenkov's ascension, which is not Ilyenkov's, by the way. It is, of course, Marx's and Hegelian ascension from the abstract to the concrete, because it is a crucial understanding that we all have to have of the ascension from the abstract to the concrete. Without it, we are like little helpless babies. I really wish everybody read this work, The Dialectics of the Abstract and Concrete in Karl Marx's Capital. I do believe, however, that you've got to read The Dialectics of the Ideal before. But yeah, both of these texts are absolutely crucial and fundamental in understanding dialectics, in understanding Marxism, communism, anything in life, because the ascension from the abstract to the concrete, it happens whether we participate in it or not, whether we are aware of it or not. It happens because this is a natural process. It is something that our nervous systems have adjusted to do in this objective reality. So the process I've already described, I think, on a couple of occasions, but I will do so once again. It happens as such. You first take in the information from the material reality. Everything in material reality is already concrete. Nothing is abstract. Everything is concrete. However, we are unable to perceive the multiplicity, the totality of the existence, even if we just focus on one aspect of this existence. So what our mind does, it makes the abstraction, right? One-sided view of something, incomplete view of something. It is a necessary part of the cognitive mental process. So this is where our conceptualization may begin. This is when we start reflecting on that data that we took in, and it is not something that happens on your own. All of the preconceived notions, all of the prior knowledge that you've ever had, or you may not even be aware that you have it, all of this is going to shape the way you reflect on to a certain subject matter. So if you think that you're unbiased, that you are a tabula rasa, or whatever you guys pronounce it as, this is not true. All of us have been indoctrinated one way or another, and none of us will ever be free from ideology. And this is something that I keep on repeating, not because it's funny, but because it's true. So what we do, however, with this data is we look for the interdependent contradiction, right? We look for the two sides, so to speak, two dominating tendencies in the process that make this object, this process, what it is. Without this, it is not going to be what it is. Without this essence, the substance, it's not going to be what it is. And well, inside of this process, we are looking for a key contradiction. And the key contradiction is the intercausal forces. Again, these are not like simple dichotomies like black and white. It is like the proverbial coin, the two sides of the same coin. We are looking at the same thing just from different angles, right? And in order to do so, we do need a multifaceted, multi-science approach. So we've got to look at it from all the available sides. It is not, however, the piles of empirical evidence we're looking for. What we are looking for is that, again, that contradiction. How would these two not be related? Just as the example that I gave before that Ilyenkov provides, the example of the book and the reader. So without the book, the reader wouldn't exist, but without the reader, the book wouldn't be created. So, what started first? What came first? No, the two came together because people needed another way of communicating thoughts to each other. They invented the written media. They invented a way to communicate without speaking to each other. So the reader was implied. When the first piece of writing was put down, the reader was already a part of that process. So from the beginning, these two were a part of the same process. So same goes for anything, any object of reality. You will have to find that key contradiction. You will have to observe that process and see where does one thing cause the other thing, and then they will switch places. Just like in Karl Marx's theory of value. In the beginning of Capital, Karl Marx's thorough, very necessary explanation of the theory of value and how capitalism generally came to be. The capitalism became the dominating force, not because of its logic and because it was so superior to the rest of the systems. It was so much better. No, not because of this. It was just that the pre-existing conditions already were there, like the trade, money, commodity exchange generally, which is the basis of trade. All of this already existed as singulars, as individual cases. But then the accumulation of those cases led to this moment this crucial moment where it became the necessity for the reproduction of life itself. And I talked about this before in some of my previous videos. I should probably put them all in a list for ease of access. But when you look at the process and you look at the forces, the tendencies that are intercausal, interdependent, and they switch roles, one used to be the cause, now it may be the effect, and vice versa. So this is when you come to a concrete concept. So once you understand the logic of how something becomes what it is, this is when you arrive at a concept. Now, concepts change not because of the concrete reality changing, but because of the way we are able to perceive them. So from that concrete conceptualization, we then go back to reality. We start working with whatever subject matter we have just been conceptualizing about. We start our practice. This is where we check and we test for our conceptualization and whether it is true or not. We not necessarily do experiments of any sorts. It is just that we see how the reality corresponds with our conclusions. Because sometimes we may be wrong and we may have missed some crucial aspect of this material reality. And I know a lot of people will come in and be like, this is just the scientific method. And yeah, this is the scientific method, but dialectically done, it is what leads to the truth. And unfortunately, a lot of times nowadays, science is not equipped with a dialectical method. They do half of that, they do part of that journey, and then they stop. Oftentimes, just like Hegel, conceptualization is where it stops. They are like, this is it, this is the grandiose conclusion that we have made about life itself, and then period. We don't need anything else. We don't care if it works in reality. We don't care if it changes at all. And what changes, what I mentioned before, is not the reality itself necessarily, even though it does change as well. It is our understanding of it. Because of the way we interact with that subject matter, we are going to influence it. We are going to change it. Because of the way that nature is, it is going to change. But our understanding will always be more concrete if we study it using the dialectical method. Now, this is what I wish we all studied at schools, because this is so immensely helpful when you realize that, oh, you have just not had enough of the exposure to certain subject matter, and you have not had enough practice with the subject matter. That's why you don't understand it. That's why you have all of these misunderstandings and myths. This is why you believe all of that nonsense. And of course, some people may argue, rightfully so, that nowadays, because of our ideological indoctrination, it is very, very much impossible to teach people this method, and they will refuse and say that you are cuckoo, just as people say to me often on the internet. And that is an emotional issue that I think that we need to resolve because of the fear that we have, this deep fear of dehumanization, this deep fear of mortality and of never having been. This is what we need to deal with before we start sharing any kind of truth, any kind of methods. But spontaneously, people still arrive at the dialectical method, even if we erase all of the works dealing with dialectics. They will still make a reappearance. They are still going to appear because this is the way our mind works. We conceptualize first, And often we may come to a false conclusion. We may come to a false conceptualization because of all the previous knowledge. It may be helpful, but it sometimes may be harmful as well. So let me know if this makes sense. Let me know if you want me to ramble about this a little bit more. Hopefully, some of you are going to pick up the dialectics of the abstract and the ideal after this. And I hope you have a great day today. Consider support me on Patreon. Do take care of yourself and your community first. Subscribe to me on all the other social media accounts, even though I don't do much there. And I'll talk to you sometime later.